Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today I have come up with another class for class 12th. Inshallah, by tomorrow in the next class, the next lecture, we will finish this chapter, electromagnetic effects of current. And today I have picked up two topics. One is hysteresis. 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 Sorry, it is hysteresis. So let me tell you what hysteresis is. Hysteresis is, it is a curve between magnetizing field H and intensity of magnetization. Draw a graph between magnetizing intensity H and intensity of magnetization. What is magnetizing intensity? It is the field, external magnetic field, which can magnetize a substance. We have already discussed these things: magnetic permeability, magnetic field induction B, magnetizing intensity H, then intensity of magnetization. Intensity of magnetization is the uh, ability of the substance or the extent to which a substance can be magnetized. For example, I have told you that if we put wood in magnetic field, it may not get magnetized at all. So it is intensity of magnetization is 0. Similarly, greater the strength of the magnetic field, greater will be the magnetizing intensity of the field. If the magnetic field is strong, it can magnetize a substance to a larger extent. So we have to draw a graph between the magnetizing intensity H and intensity of magnetization. So let me start now. When a magnetic material is placed in a magnetizing field, it gets magnetized. For example, if we put iron or steel in the magnetizing field, both will get magnetized to different extents. Steel may get more magnetized than the iron. If the strength of the magnetizing field is increased, the intensity of magnetization also increases. That is, if we put a specimen or a magnetic material, say iron, in two different fields, one is stronger than the other, the iron will get magnetized strongly in a strong magnetic field, or to a greater extent in a strong magnetic field. So if we increase the magnetizing field, what we see that the intensity of magnetization I also increases, as you can see from the graph, from the figure. It is clear from the figure that when the strength of the magnetizing intensity H is maximum, that is OG, you can see from the graph OG, the intensity of magnetization I is also maximum, that is OL. As you can see from the graph, at point A, you can see at point A, here at this point, the intensity of magnetization, that is point L, OL, it is intensity of magnetization is maximum when the magnetizing field, that is H at point G, is maximum. As H is reduced to 0 at O, when we make the magnetizing intensity H0, what happens? I does not reduce to 0 at O. As you can see, at O, I is equal to OB. when H is made 0 at this point B, you can see at point B H is 0. Here at point B H is 0, whereas I is equal to OB, that is intensity of magnetization is not 0. Though the magnetizing field we have switched off, we have closed it now, there is no magnetizing field H, but still the intensity of magnetization, that is the specimen will have achieved some magnetism. So intensity of magnetization is not 0. Thus some magnetism which is equal to OB is left in the specimen, in the material. For example, for instance, we have taken it, say, iron. So iron has achieved, it has retained some magnetism in it. The specimen iron has retained some magnetism in it. Despite that we have switched off the magnetizing field H. The value of intensity of magnetization I is equal to OB of the material when the magnetizing field intensity H is equal to 0 is reduced to 0 is called relativity. This process, when the magnetizing field H is reduced to 0 but the intensity of magnetization I is not reduced to 0, is called retentivity. Retentivity has been derived from the word retain. That is, the specimen has retained some magnetism in it. It has now become a magnet itself. The iron has now become a magnet itself. Even though we have switched off the magnetizing field, or this is also known as residual magnetism. Why it is called as residual? Because some magnetism resides in the specimen now. I hope you will have understood it. We see when we increase the magnetizing field, the intensity of magnetization increases, the specimen starts getting magnetized, and when the intensity of magnetizing intensity is maximum, it is high, and after that we are not able to increase it further. So when it is high, the intensity of magnetization is also high. But when we reduce the magnetizing field H to 0, we see that the intensity of magnetism inside the iron or say a specimen is not becoming 0. It retains some magnetism. That is called retentivity. That is called the retentivity of the specimen. The specimen has now retained some magnetism, or some magnetism resides in the material. So it is also known as residual magnetism. Remember this thing. When the intensity of the magnetizing intensity H is increased, but in opposite direction. So now we change the poles of the magnetizing field. North pole becomes south pole, and the south pole becomes north pole, and the specimen is still there in this field. So we change the direction of the magnetic field. So then we increase the magnetic field, magnetizing field. So when the intensity of the magnetizing field or magnetizing intensity H is increased in opposite direction, OC, as you can see from the graph, OC, what happens? The intensity of magnetization I reduces to 0. You can see now at point C. At point C, what we see, I is equal to 0. At point C, I is equal to 0. But H is not equal to 0. H is equal to OC. Which means that the specimen or the material, for instance, I have taken it here, iron. Iron has lost all its magnetism. It no longer behaves like a magnet. It has become as we had put it before the process. So it loses all its magnetism. the value of the magnetizing intensity, that is H is equal to OC, in the opposite direction, to reduce the residual magnetism, to reduce the retentivity of the material of the specimen to zero, is called coercivity. Is called coercivity. That is, I will tell you. Now we have a magnetism, some magnetism in the residual material, in the specimen. Residual magnetism is there now. Now we want to uh, get rid of this magnetism. We want to finish its magnetism now. We don't want to have any kind of magnetism. Now what we have to do, we have to put it again in the magnetizing field B, but we have to change the direction of the magnetic field B. How much magnetic field is required to get rid of this magnetism, to get it free of magnetism? This, say for example, iron. How much magnetic field is magnetizing field is required? The value of that magnetizing field is called coercivity. Is called coercive. So we have to see, for if we have two different materials, iron and steel, for example, if we put both of them in a magnetic field, both of them will get first magnetized. If we reduce the magnetizing field to zero, still they will retain some, both will retain some magnetism. But now we want to finish the magnetism in both steel and iron. What we do, we will need different, the strength of different magnetic field, magnetizing field will be different to get rid of it. For example, the steel will lose its magnetism a bit later than the iron. The iron will lose its magnetism earlier, which means the coercivity of iron is less than the coercivity of the steel. Steel will lose its magnetism, for example, in 10 minutes, but iron will lose its magnetism in 5 minutes in the same field. In the same field, the field having the same strength, when we put both of them there to so that they lose their magnetism, but they will lose it. So one will lose it in 10 minutes, that is steel, and the other will lose it in 5 minutes, say iron. So iron will have less coercivity than the steel. So the value of magnetizing intensity H in the opposite direction, to reduce the residual magnetism, to reduce the retentivity of the specimen to zero, is called coercivity of the material. So retentivity will also be different in different materials. Some specimen, some magnetic materials will retain magnetism for a long time, or will retain maximum magnetism. Some will retain less magnetism, but doesn't matter in how much time they will lose their magnetism. So retentivity of the material can be different, coercivity of the material can be different. Now, when the magnetizing intensity H is maximum, that is okay. What we see again, the intensity of magnetization is also maximum, but in opposite direction, that is OE. You can see at this at point D, that is at point D. What we see, the intensity of magnetization, that is OE, that is equal to I, and the intensity of magnetizing field OK is also maximum. So when the intensity of magnetization is maximum, the magnetizing intensity H is also maximum. Now again, as H is reduced to zero at O, I does not reduce to zero. If we bring back, if we reduce the magnetizing intensity H to zero, we see that I does not reduce to zero. It still retains, that is OE. I is equal to OE. I does not reduce to zero, that is at O. H is equal to zero and I is equal to OE. Thus, some magnetism I is equal to OE is again left in the specimen. Retentivity, which is we call a retentivity or residual magnetism. When H is increased to OF, I is reduced to zero again, and that we call coercivity. So when H reaches its maximum value, OGI also reaches its maximum value OL. Thus a cycle of magnetization. Then we change again the direction of the magnetic field is changed. So we need not to put the specimen in north south pole of a bar magnet, but we can use an electric current, because an AC electric current, while magnetic field will continue changing. The magnetic field will also change today, because in AC we see the polarity change frequently. So magnetizing field will also change. If you put a specimen in a, for example, in a solenoid, if you put it in a solenoid, inside the solenoid, you will see what will happen. It will get magnetized, then demagnetized, and then magnetized, and then demagnetized. If you switch off the current, the magnetizing field H will be switched off. There will be no magnetic field at all, but specimen will retain some kind sort of magnetism. So this cycle continues. This cycle continues. When H reaches its maximum value, OGI also reaches its maximum value, OL. Thus, a cycle of magnetization is completed. I follows the path O A B C D E F A. This curve is called hysteresis curve. This curve is called hysteresis curve, and the process is called hysteresis. Now, what is hysteresis? The phenomenon of lagging of I or B behind H. Lagging of I or B behind H. When a magnetic material is subjected to a cycle of magnetization is called hysteresis. This is a cycle of magnetization. It gets magnetized, then demagnetized. So this is called a cycle of magnetization. Uh, and we see that I or B lags behind H, or H leads both I and B in this curve. This process is called hysteresis. So then there is another topic, that is classification of magnetic materials. This we will discuss in the next class. But today we have one more part of this class, that is we are going to discuss electromagnets. What are permanent magnets and what are electromagnets? So you might have read about these electromagnets in your class 10th. An electromagnet consists of a long coil of insulated copper wire wound on a soft iron core, or not necessarily on an iron core or any core. It's not necessarily that you can wound it on a soft iron core. You can wound it also on steel iron core. So core of this electromagnet can be of any material. The principle of an electromagnet is based on magnetic effects of current. That is, when an electric current is passed through a long coil solenoid, a magnetic field is produced inside a solenoid. Though it is also produced outside the solenoid, but outside the solenoid, the magnetic field is almost zero. Though it is not exactly equal to zero, but it is negligible. So outside the solenoid, we ignore the fact that there is any kind of magnetic field. There is no magnetic field at all. Though there is, but comparatively compared to the magnetic field inside the solenoid, it is negligible. It is zero. So the we say that the magnetic field is confined inside the solenoid, and we know that the inside the solenoid the magnetic lines of course they are parallel. So this, what will that magnetic field do if we put say a soft iron core or inside the solenoid, or a steel iron core? They will get magnetized, as we were just discussing. They will be subjected to a cycle of magnetization and demagnetization. That is, they will be subject to hysteresis. So if a soft iron rod core is placed inside a solenoid, it gets strongly magnetized. Strongly magnetic. That is, its intensity of magnetization is very high. But its retentivity and its porosity is very low. It cannot retain its magnetism for a longer time, and the magnetic field strength becomes very large. The solenoid with soft iron core acts as a magnet as long as the current is flowing in it. Let me tell you one thing. When the current flows through the solenoid, a magnetic field is produced around it, and when a soft iron core is placed inside the solenoid, it gets magnetized, it produces its own magnetic field, so the magnetic field increases. There are now two types of magnetic fields. One magnetic field is produced by the solenoid, and the other is produced by the core, which becomes a magnet. So that is why I tell you the strength of the magnetic field becomes very, very large. The solenoid with soft iron core acts as a magnet. It also becomes a magnet as long as the current is flowing through in it. Once the current is switched off, it loses all its magnetism abruptly in no time. So its retentivity or its porosity is nil, zero, very small, and no more behaves as a magnet because the soft iron core loses all its magnetism, and therefore electromagnets are also known as temporary magnets. You can use them in situations where you temporarily need a magnetic field. You switch on the current, it will become a magnet, and if you don't want any magnetic field anymore, so you can switch off the current, it will lose all its magnetism. It will no more act as a magnet. The core used in an electromagnet must possess the following properties. Number one, the hysteresis loss of the core must be small. There should not be any kind of energy loss. Number two, the value of I and B must be high. What does that mean? I is the intensity of magnetization. It must receive a large amount of magnetism in it. The core must receive a large amount of magnetism in it. That is intensity of magnetization. And B must be high. That is, B is the magnetic field produced by the solenoid. That must also be high. Number three, the value of H must be low. Number four, its retentivity must be low. Once the current is switched off, it must lose all its magnetism. That is, it must not retain any kind of magnetism in it. This is the property of an electromagnet. Number five, its porosity must be also low. It must should be easily demagnetized. We should not need a large amount of magnetic field to demagnetize it. So its porosity must be very low. Now permanent magnets. Now if the core of an electromagnet is made of steel instead of soft iron, the electromagnet so formed does not lose all its magnetism even after the current is switched off. As in case of an electromagnet, once the current is switched off, it loses all its magnetism. It no longer behaves like a magnet. But here in permanent magnet, the core of the solenoid or this electromagnet, it is made up of soft, steel. It is not made up of soft iron, so that it does not lose its magnetism even after the current is switched off. The core used in permanent magnet must possess the following properties. You can see it from here. This one we have learned, so you need not look at here. So this part we are discussing. The core used in a permanent magnet must possess the following properties. Number one, the hysteresis loss of the core must be high. The value of I and B must be high. That is, it must get highly magnetized, and the magnetic field in this it must produce a very high magnetic field D. First, it must get highly magnetized, and B, that is, it must produce a very high magnetic field. The value of H must be high, that is, the magnetic field produced by this solenoid. B is the magnetic field produced by the core, which becomes a magnet, but H is the magnetizing field that is produced by solenoid. Remember this thing. That must also be high. Now, what about retentivity? It must be high. It must be able to retain its magnetism even after the current is switched off for a very, very long time. That is retentivity. And its porosity must be high. If we want to demagnetize it, it must not get easily demagnetized. So its porosity must also be high. Electromagnets and permanent magnets are made in different shapes and sizes depending on the purpose for which they are to be used. An electromagnet is better than a bar magnet. Bar magnet is a natural magnet. Remember this thing, that is also a permanent magnet. And the steel which we made now a magnet is also a permanent magnet. But this is a permanent electromagnet, and the bar magnet is a natural magnet. This permanent electromagnet, that is steel which we have made now a magnet, is better than a bar magnet because the strength of an electromagnet, that is the steel rod, is can be varied as per we can make it stronger or weaker, but the bar magnet the strength of the bar magnet cannot be varied, that will be constant. Now, factors affecting the strength of electromagnets. The strength of an electromagnet is affected by the following factors. Number one, the number of turns in the coil. So, if we make a solenoid, someone will make it a solenoid of 100 turns, and someone will make a solenoid of may use a solenoid of 200 turns. So, the number of turns in the coil in the solenoid will affect the uh, strength of the electromagnet. Greater the number of turns of the coil, greater will be the strength of an electromagnet. Remember this thing. If you use these two solenoids, which has greater number of turns than the other, in a situation where the current is same, where you have a same current. For example, in a room, you are sitting in the same room, two of the students are sitting in the same room. Room means they will have the same current. The setting of the current will be same there. But what they do, they use for making an electromagnet. They use solenoids of different turns. One has say 100 turns, the other has 200 turns. So the 200 turns will make a stronger electromagnet. The number of turns greater the number of turns, greater will be the strength of an electromagnet, and vice versa. Number two, the current flowing in the coil. For example, now if you use the number of turns in both the solenoids is same, but the current is different. In one uses a current of 10 ampere and the other uses a current of 15 ampere. So it will also be affected. The strength of the electromagnet will also be affected. Larger the amount of current flowing in the coil, greater will be the strength of an electromagnet, vice versa. Then it also depends upon length of air gap between its poles. Length of air gap, that is solenoid. We know that inside the solenoid there must be a air gap. Smaller the gap between the poles of an electromagnet, that is between the north pole and the south pole of this solenoid. Smaller the gap, greater will be the strength of an electromagnet, and vice versa. For example, in U-shaped, if you have a U-shaped electromagnet, then the length between the poles will be small. You may understand it if you have a U-shaped, because north pole and south pole will be very close to each other. So there, hence its strength is greater compared to the other electromagnets. Thank you. See you inshallah tomorrow in the next class.